With that being said, I will introduce to you Glenn Beck.
That was very kind. Thank you. Hello, CPAC. How are you? Welcome to Texas. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, thank you. We have a lot to go through tonight. This is going to be fun. By the way, my pronouns are exactly what they've always been. I got up this morning, and as Matt will tell you, last night we spoke, and he said, "Have you written your speech yet?" And I went, "Nah." I don't usually write speeches. I just go with what I'm feeling at the time. And this morning, I got up grumpy. So this speech has a little grumpiness to it because I am sick and tired of the lies that are constantly coming at us. I am tired of it. I think you are too. So we're gonna set the record straight. And I brought a lot of stuff from our vaults at Mercury. I have a charity called Mercury One. We do a lot of humanitarian care. We have moved, fed, and sheltered over 100,000 Christians and Yazidis in the Middle East. One of the other things we do, and you will understand this in the coming months, we are beginning to teach history, where Dennis Prager has done such a great job. He's getting people to look at the issues with experts. We are collecting all of the documents, all of the pieces of history, so we can show you in their own words, this is exactly what happened. We have now over 120,000 founding documents. We are only surpassed by the National Archives and the Library of Congress. And its home is here in Dallas, Texas. So let me can you bring out the first artifact, please? I just purchased this the week that everybody was freaking out about Aunt Jemima. And don't get me started on the cream of wheat guy. Oh my gosh. Racists. I want to show you how misleading history can be. This, at one point, hung in some of the most important galleries in America. This is a Winslow Homer. He is one of America's greatest painters. And when you look at it, CNN were here, they'd be like, Glenn Beck is showing slavery. They're now for slavery. Why would I bring this? Well, this I purchased at an extraordinarily low price because no one wanted it that week. But Homer was an abolitionist. Why would he paint this? Glorifying. No, this was actually painted for the 10th anniversary of freeing the slaves. The 10th anniversary. And Homer knew that that Reconstruction, everything that was going on, it wasn't enough. It wasn't really freeing people yet. So he painted this painting of a woman. He went down south to paint it. He painted the woman in the cotton fields. She is below the horizon. She is looking down. She's still trapped in the same place. She may be free, but she doesn't know what else to do. Her daughter, above the horizon, is looking out towards the future, but she's still in the fields as well. The reason why I wanted to bring this out to show you is there's a lot of stuff on history that if you just look at it, you're going to get a completely different indication. You're going to walk away with an impression that is not true. This is why our history is being dumbed down and edited and taught in little sound bites. Because when you have the full picture, then you can digest it and understand. So, thank you. Let me give you a quick synopsis of who we are. And I'd like to take down, this is my pissed off part of the morning, white guilt. You are nothing but a bunch of ignorant imbeciles. White supremacists. You're a racist. You're anti-Jewish, you know, anti-Asian, anti-Native American. You're a Nazi. You're a fascist. You live on stolen land. You're anti-government. That's a weird one. You're a conspiracy theorist and violent extremists. Just look at you. I see you over there. Yeah, I know, you look like a sweet grandmother, but I know you're packing heat and you'd cut them down. So let's talk about American history. And let's start with slavery. No matter what you say, slavery was worse than you can imagine. Worse than you can imagine. This is filled with rocks. If you were a runner, they'd know exactly where you were. There was no hiding. This you wore as a punishment up to a month. If you didn't behave, you wore it around your neck. Imagine sleeping. It's worse than you think it was. But now, let's give a little perspective. I brought some pesky little facts with me. I love you too. I know chicks dig me, but I'm happily married. It happens to me everywhere I go. Oh, yes. And I smell like a Hostess Twinkie. Slavery and racism have affected every single nation on the planet. Prior to the arrival of any European in America. Fact number one, 20 to 40% of indigenous people were enslaved by other indigenous people, placing them on par with the slave empires of ancient Rome or Greece. That's a fact. Suck it, CNN. During the transatlantic slave trade from 1501 to 1875, 12.7 million Americans or Africans were involuntarily enslaved, carried from Africa to other parts of the world. Of these other parts of the world, approximately 5.8 million slaves were Portuguese holdings. They went to Portugal in Portuguese holdings. 26% of the slaves went to English, 11% French, 8% went to Spanish holdings, 4% to Dutch. Only 2.4% of the enslaved Africans were brought to the United States. We were not the worst. Yes, we engaged in it, as well did the rest of the world. Do you know that there were 12 million slaves at the time? There are 40 million slaves today. What are we arguing about 400 years ago? Let's free people today. By the way, Mercury One just purchased the largest collection of documents and artifacts from the Pilgrims and Jamestown. It's the largest collection in the world. Oh, 1619 Project, we're coming for you. The first African-American slaves arrived in Virginia. What year? 1619. Let's reimagine history. Or not. They were not slaves, they were indentured servants. You can argue back and forth, slavery, indentured servants, it can be horrible, yada, 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 but let's be accurate. Because they say that that is the first time that slaves came here in America, and actually it's not true. The second slave ship to arrive, anybody know where it arrived? Plymouth. Yes, Plymouth, 1646. What happened to that slave ship? Oh, yeah, no, they didn't send them back. No, they did not send them back. What they did is they freed all the slaves, and the slave owners and the slave ship captain they put in jail for human stealing. That was America. That is the Pilgrims. You can say we started in Jamestown. A lot of people want to have that argument. We didn't start in Jamestown. We don't have a Thanksgiving where we celebrate those people that actually turned into cannibals. We did not celebrate those. We celebrate Massachusetts and the Pilgrims in Plymouth who were anti-slavery the whole time. By the way, anybody, the first documented slave in America, does anybody know who it was? First documented slave happened in Virginia, and it happened in 1653. And the owner was Anthony Johnson. He had somebody who was an indentured servant. It means they paid for your way over, and then you work off that debt and you go free. Well, he didn't think that guy worked hard enough. And so he went to court, and he convinced a court in Virginia that that man didn't work hard enough, and I should own him for the rest of his life. That is the first slave in America. It was an African-American slave. The funny thing is, Anthony Johnson was also an African-American. The first official black slave was owned by a black man. Because early slave laws in America allowed the ownership of whites in addition to black and Indian slaves, whites were also enslaved in the United States. Globally, up to the 16th century, there were more documented white slaves in the old world than there was in the new world of black slaves. You see, slavery is not about race. It's about getting your thumb over somebody. And if you happen to be the population that is A, evil, B, you want to control somebody else, you'll put your thumb on them. You can classify them as Jews, blacks, people with blonde hair, people with black hair. It doesn't matter. When man wants to enslave somebody, he will enslave something. Americans, hear me and start saying this. Slavery is not about racism. Slavery is not about America. Slavery is a human condition. It's a human condition that needs to be worked on at all times. Racism is a human condition. By the way, one more fact here that is pesky, and I just got to get it off of my desk here. New England was the first major region in the world to abolish slavery. Pennsylvania, Massachusetts began doing so in 1780. Connecticut and Rhode Island in 1784. New Hampshire, 1792. Vermont, 1793. New York, 1799. New Jersey, 1804. Now, why is that important? Because the one that gets credit for being the first country is Great Britain. And they did it 30 years after New England did it. We were the first in the world. We're also the only people that had white people killing white people to free black people. 500,000 Americans died for freedom, and not because anybody felt anything personal, maybe they did. But the people who fought and died, they believed in a higher ideal. They believed, even though it was very complex at the time because it was a new thought, that all men are created equal. That's why we fought and died. That's why we carry on today. That's what the Republican Party should be all about today. We all are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Stand for those rights. That is our unum. That will unite us. By the way, you can call me at any time, and we'll give you all of the names. There's hundreds of them that are first black Americans. These are the first black Americans to serve in the House of Representatives. Were you taught this in school? Because I wasn't taught any of these names in school. I wonder why. Oh, we'll get to that. The other thing is, you know, we all just worship these white founders, and these white founders are just, oh my gosh, they're white. They were rich. They only cared about themselves. How could Thomas Jefferson write all men are created equal when he knew that blacks were being enslaved? Well, this is an engraving from 1826. This is the copy, Jefferson's own hand, the first draft of the Declaration of Independence. It is quite something. If you've never heard me talk about this, buckle up. You're in for a surprise. What's really crazy about this is it's just like now if you're editing somebody else's document, you know how it comes out and it says, you know, John just edited this and put this line in. That's what this says, except it's in quill pen. Here it says B. Franklin, and it shows what he changed in his own handwriting. This is J. Adams and what he changed. What struck me about this was in the usurpations part. Just a quick update, the Declaration of Independence, all you have to know is it's a great breakup letter. That's really, it's a Dear George letter, you know? You leave your underpants around. It's really not me, it is you. So that's the first thing, but we did something different. We started it with, look, you don't even know who we are. We believe in something entirely different than you. So we start with that. We hold these truths to be self-evident. This is our mission statement. This is what we say, we're breaking away from you because we're going to create something that nobody has ever done before, where people are at the head, not the government, not kings. People are at the head. And we believe that they have a right to succeed, keep their success, and fail, and learn from that failure. So the next section, after the breakup and then saying, you don't really know us, here's who we are, you never talk, we never call, you don't call us. Then we get to the usurpation part of the Declaration of Independence. And the usurpation part is and here's why you suck. And it's mainly everyone is just about one line. But when I first purchased this, I was looking at it upside down, and I was using it for something else. And I looked down, and Stu, my partner on the radio, said, "Security." So Stu said to me, thinking that I would have an answer, which of course I did. He said, "Why are these two words down there capitalized?" And I was like, I don't know, it's upside down. That first word that is printed is Christian, and it's underlined. and the other one is men. And it's the only word in 4 pages that's capitalized. Why? So as they were saying 10, 9, 8, I said, oh my gosh. This is Jefferson. Remember, the guy who's an evil slave owner. This is Jefferson, and he writes in here an entire paragraph about slavery. And he says, and then this so-called capitalized, underlined, Christian king violates the most sacred of man's rights by taking people who have never offended him. He takes them from one country, he puts them on a boat where they're most likely going to die, and then he puts, capital letters, these men on the auction block for sale. He knew exactly what he was saying. He capitalized men because, as you know, it was controversial to say, you were a man. You can't say that about a slave. Jefferson did. Now, why isn't this in the Declaration of Independence? Because, if you remember right, there are a few words that are capitalized at the very beginning, and it is United States of America. But in the final draft, it says the unanimous declaration. See, before they wrote this, Jefferson wasn't even supposed to write it. Before they even wrote this, John Hancock stood up and he said, all right, guys, remember, noose around our neck. We're all dead men. We have to, as Ben Franklin said, hang together or we will hang separately. So he knew the king is going to come in and he's going to find any differences and he's going to weasel in. I mean, does that sound familiar today? And he's going to try to divide us any way he can. So every word of this document, I think, should be unanimous. Everyone has to believe every word. So when it went, out of this racist nation, how many of the 13 colonies voted against that? 2. That means 11 wanted to stop it right there. 2 did not. Why is the entire country, why is every founder labeled a horrible racist when 11 of all of the represented colonies, 11 said stop it? Here's another question for the progressive left. What they decided to do, so they could hold everybody together, was to start passing laws incrementally dismantling slavery, like progressives. That's what they did. Why? Why, they'll ask us in 100 years, why didn't you stop abortion? I'm doing everything I can. There's a lot of us fighting against it right now. If suddenly the world wakes up and goes, gee, you know what, that is a baby in there. It's not a 1956 Buick like I thought it was. When the world wakes up, they will look at us, our generation, and say, why didn't you stop it? Because the only way you can stop it is to start killing each other, and I don't know how that ends. That is the same position they were in. Do not moralize and tell me what our founders believe when the left doesn't even know our founding documents. They don't know these men. Ignorance, white supremacy. Oh, I haven't even started yet. Let me define for the left who the Klan is. This is one of the earliest Klan hoods we can find. You know what the Klan was? Yes, It was the enforcement arm of the Democratic Party, kind of like Antifa. That is what it was. It wasn't a group of people like, you know what? I don't have a political stake in this at all. I don't care who you vote for. It was Democrats. They started the Klan, they furthered the Klan, and they're still lying about it today. Oh, you Republicans. Oh, you Republicans, you're trying to disenfranchise people. You're trying to make sure that they don't vote. Oh, you mean like in 1932? Here are the poll tax receipts that we have from the Democratic Party. They were charging people to vote. Not all people, of course. Just the people they didn't want to vote. Did I bring the... Oh, yeah, well, here it is. This is later. I don't even know what she said. This is from Alabama. I like this one. This is the Democratic primary schedule here. You can choose, but I'm sorry, I left a word out. It's the Democratic white primary. You see, blacks couldn't vote in the primary. So, you know, if you wanted a black person on there, you should have said something, but you couldn't. So we're just going to have all these white people on here, and only white people can vote in the primary. This was not Republican. This was the Democrats. And the Democrats have not changed their spots. How do I know? Well, let's look at some of their heroes, shall we? This is Origin of the Species. This is Charles Darwin. Anybody know the full name of the book, Origin of Species? Another surprise. Origin of the species by means of natural selection, or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. Oh. Well, I always knew that most of my conservative friends found Charles Darwin to be wrong, if not evil. I didn't read the or part of the title. This is the basis of almost everything that has happened in the 20th century and coming our way. This codified, this gave people like the Klan the proof. See, science says it. Science says that they've got, where have we heard that before? Gee, believe science. Science tells us. No. This was codified. And let me just go to another one of their heroes. This is a great series of the history of the American people. It's a multiple volume set. My favorite is this one, which is volume 4. I'm ignorant, so I only look at the pictures. This is amazing. This is a history of the United States. Doesn't include a single black hero. Not one. Not one. In the entire history of the United States. It's crazy. And in fact, you know, it has a picture. Where's the camera? Can you pick this up? Look at how they define, my gosh, you've let yourself go to hell, Glenn. Zoom in a little closer, can't you? Good God, put the fork down from time to time. Can you come in closer? Not that one. Oh, yeah, let's get a side shot of him. Good God, man. I'm not doing this for you ever again. Okay, you can't see it, but this is how black people are depicted, and they're depicted in every single picture as half man, half monkey. Author, Woodrow Wilson. I love you. Woodrow, oh, by the way, did you read that 35% or 36% of Americans, only 36% of Americans, think that Joe Biden is actually in charge? You know, I wondered if the Democrats, were part of that. They were like, I don't think he was in charge. But that would be a conspiracy theory. Of course, unless you read my memoir by Edith Bowling Wilson because she actually ran the White House and the president for the last 18 months of Woodrow Wilson's life because he was president, had a stroke, and was like, she like, sign this, honey. They've done it before. Am I gonna get canceled? I just want you to know, this was so hard to get through Secret Service. They're like, he's got a flintlock. Like, it's a cap and ball, actually. I'm a violent extremist that only uses 1,800 weapons. We've got to get that weapon out of the hands of that madman. Well, it would be the second time somebody did that. This is one of the only 7 guns that are in private hands, the guns that were taken from the Native Americans by the United States government at Wounded Knee. By the way, look this up. Fun fact. Did you know the most decorated event in all of U.S. military history? I mean, forget about, I don't know where they were, Pearl Harbor or someplace in the flag. Forget about all that stuff. I know. There's Marines in the building. Yes, sir. Got it. So, forget about all that. Forget about World War II. Forget about all of the heroics. More people received a Congressional Medal of Honor at Wounded Knee than any other battle in American history. Isn't that weird? In fact, everyone received a medal. Everyone that was there got a Congressional Medal of Honor. You know why? It was bribery. The government took arms from peaceful people in the middle of the night. When the locals had it down, somebody from the government came out in the middle of the night and said, "You left those savages with weapons?" "No, they're gonna give it to us in the morning. Everything is fine. You go down there and get them before they kill us all." They went down. Somebody panicked in the middle of the night. Could be us, our side. Could be the Native Americans. We don't know. But it was a slaughter. And it is disgraceful. The Congressional Medal of Honor winners should band together and reject every single one. Those guys are dead. Reject every single medal and restore the honor to the Congressional Medal of Honor. So, as there's a book by George Bernard Shaw, the guy who came up, he was the first guy who said, no, he's a big hero to a lot of people. Oh, they love him in the university. He's a fantastic playwright. Also the guy who came up with the gas chamber for people that, we just don't have time for. They're eating more and consuming more than they produce. And there must be some mechanism we could come up with. That's George Bernard Shaw, a hero of the left. I'm trying to remember who's the ones that are really off? Because I'm trying to, what they say is America can't come together. We can't even save this country because the founders of this country were so evil. Well, let's see. Who started the progressives? We have Woodrow Wilson, already covered him. We have George Bernard Shaw. I love, of course, who doesn't love? Just, it's like poetry, if I may. From pivot of civilization, it's not hard to envision an ideal world where we have an IQ patrol task force, so to speak, of specialists who carry out search and destroy missions. Go to houses when you see the most children. This is because the first symptom of feeble-mindedness and degeneracy, statistics clearly show, the degenerate strains and feeble-minded have an abnormally high fertility rate. Don't be fooled by their family normal appearance. Who doesn't love a little Margaret Sanger in the morning? Let's see, so she was there at the progressive era. I'm just seeing a theme here. We had Woodrow Wilson, we had George Bernard Shaw. Oh, and I love this. This is just a collection of people. The Dean of the College of Law for USC, the Chair of the Executive Council at Caltech, Harvard poli-sci professors, and 2 other professors from Berkeley. They put something together called the Human Betterment Foundation. I just want to tell you a little about the Human Betterment Foundation. At Stanford, they had this crazy group of people who said, you know what, Margaret Sanger's right. And that George Bernard Shaw guy, he's got it going down too. And we should take some of those progressive ideas and share them. Share them with the world. Who'd like to hear this around the world? You know what? 1936. How about those crazy cats over in Germany? I bet they'd love some of our progressive ideas. So they went over in 1936. The Human Betterment Foundation, Harvard, Stanford, Caltech, all of them. Same group of people that are now preaching science to us now. They said, we've got to get rid of all of these degenerates. So the Nazis wrote back, and I just want to quote what they wrote to the Human Betterment Society. You will be interested to know that your work has played a powerful part in shaping the opinions of the group of intellectuals who are behind Hitler in this epic-making program. Everywhere we sensed that your opinions have tremendously stimulated us, your American thought, and particularly the work of the Human Betterment Foundation. I want you, my dear friend, to have this thought with you for the rest of your life. Oh, there's nothing I wish more to be true than this line. My dear friend, have this thought with you for the rest of your life, that you have truly jolted into action a great government of 60 million people. It was an American progressive idea. The Germans thought it was brilliant. Thought George Bernard Shaw and Margaret Sanger, those are some good ideas, but they just talk about them. Let's put it into practice. By the way, Nazis, National Socialists, so gosh, I just don't think we're Nazis, because I'm not for socialism. I'm not for killing a bunch of people. Oh, wait a minute, hang on, but we're also anti-Jewish. No, I guess we're not anti-Jewish either. We must be anti-something. It's got to be anti-black. This is the, you ever tried to get fat hands? They're like meat mints. Close enough. This is the Olympic torch. Jesse Owens, 1936, Berlin. We all know the story of Jesse Owens. The man was incredible. The man was fearless, fearless. We also know that he never met a Nazi. Now, I'm going somewhere with this, so it's like the painting. Follow for a while. When we went into Goebbels' office, Goebbels was in charge of the Olympics, and he was in charge of everybody who met with Adolf Hitler. Now, I can't prove that he met with Adolf Hitler, but I can tell you that this is from the book that was in Goebbels' office, the signatures of everyone, all of the winners of the medals that met with Adolf Hitler. And there's Jesse Owens' signature. So I don't say that he met with Hitler, but somebody went to him and said, can you sign our fan book, please? The only reason why I bring this up is because it's horrendous that not Jesse Owens, that Hitler would turn his back on a guy just because of his color. But there was somebody else that did that too. Could you bring in the next artifact, please? This is crazy, because there was somebody else that did it too. And Do we have that artifact? Here it is. This is my daughter, Mary. She's not the artifact. Thank you, sweetheart. This is the chair that was owned by FDR. This is the chair that he had. I don't know if he died in it. I think he died on somebody, if you know what I mean. But this is the chair that he was using the day he died. You know what's crazy is he didn't meet with Jesse Owens either. He didn't even call Jesse Owens. He didn't even have somebody come out from the Oval Office and go to Jesse Owens and go, hey, could you sign this on the side? We're big fans. So wait a minute. Here's another progressive icon that wouldn't even meet with Jesse Owens. And you know what's more? Because anti-Jewish, we know that. We know the Asian, where is the, oh yeah. While he was in that chair, he also came up with this. Tell me who's anti-Asian. Is it the Republicans that fought against this? Or is it the guy who was in this wheelchair, who the Pentagon said there are no problems with the Japanese in the West? You don't have to round them up. That's a bad idea. And he used that and something that Woodrow Wilson Hyde called Black Tom, the Black Tom event in 1916 or 15. He hid that. That event was hidden. It was an actual terrorist attack on our soil by the Germans, but Woodrow Wilson was running for re-election, and we're not going to war. Trust me, we won't go to war. We had a German terrorist actually pierced the chest of the Statue of Liberty. We think that's just capitalists that did that. It was capitalists that did that. They didn't care about their workers. They had no control over all of those ammunitions, and it just all blew up. No. As Franklin said, FDR, as he said in 1941, we now know that that was a German spy plotting espionage. If it happened then, it could happen again with the Japanese. You know why I like FDR? I gotta go a long way for this one. I bought this wheelchair. My wife said, what are you going to do with FDR's wheelchair? And I said, race with it. The reason why I bought it is because I think this says everything you need to know about progressives and about the truth about America. FDR was so concerned about looking like he was crippled, he never was shown in a wheelchair. It bothered him so much. That man had more strength than most of us in this room. That man was paralyzed. When he walks, if you ever see him walking, he has to use his upper torso to throw his weight so it looks like he's walking while he is hanging on to his son. When he stood before Congress and said, December 7th, 1941, that man was holding himself up, the strength of his arms, and he didn't sound winded, he didn't sound weak. While the fascists and the communists and the people over in Germany were devaluing life, like Margaret Sanger, and they were saying these are undesirables, he made sure that he didn't look like an undesirable. But it was an undesirable American that we all voted for. It was an undesirable American that stomped the fascist into the ground. It was an American in a wheelchair. While they were saying there's no value in somebody in a wheelchair, how ironic that he believed that, and yet he defeated them. The truth about America is, I think this chair says more about FDR than anything else. This shows me that a man who cannot walk, who others might call disabled, crippled, undesirable, worthless, It shows that any man can put his mind to it and he can accomplish anything. That is the principle of this country. That's what we fight for, not hide. As he was rounding out the Japanese, rounding them up, there was a tremendous American, born here in America. Her name was Rito Soto. She was of Japanese descent. These were her shoes. I was given a box of her belongings by her grandchildren right after she died. In it are the things that she kept from the concentration camp that she was put in Wyoming. She was a tremendous artist. She had a big art show at a gallery right at the Presidio, which it's not this one. It is, Presidio of San Francisco, California. She had a big art show there when she read this document posted. And she had to go and take all of her stuff and her family and get onto a bus, and she went to a horse stall for 6 months in California, where her and her family lived in one horse stall. Then they got the treat of going to Wyoming in the middle of the winter, where the slats on the cabins had holes this large all the way across. The wind was blowing through. You know what she did? She went to the commandant of that camp and she asked for crayons and paper because she was an artist and she wanted to give the kids something to do. So you know what she did? She asked for crayons and paper, and I have them. And she asked the children to draw pictures of Japanese children and blonde-haired, blue-eyed white children holding hands. And she taught them that that is what America is. Even if a government goes wrong, the idea of America is worth fighting for. She was in the camp. She made all of this. Her family was not released, but she was released early because she made all of the schematics for our bombers in World War II. They gave me these so I would preserve them and tell her story. And they said, "We don't want them because Grandma never told us that story until she was dying. And she said, 'Kids, when I'm gone, there's a box in my closet. And I want you to know, I never shared it with you because it's not who we are as Americans.' They wanted it out of the house because they never wanted to think of their mother treated like that, because she was, in their words, the most red, white, and blue American they had ever met. And they didn't want that to taint what she had taught them the whole time. My hero is not a president. My hero is not some famous person that everybody knows. My hero are people like Rio Soto. The people who just go to work every day, have the odds against them every day, having the government breathing down their neck every day. And my friends, it's going to get much worse fast. Buy me a drink first. My heroes are people like this man. He was a colonel in the armed forces. He actually saved Lincoln's life the first time. This is before we had Secret Service. He was the guy who said, hey, you got to get onto a train. We got to get you to Washington another way because they're going to kill you on the train in the morning. So he was a hero. He arranged for that transportation and got him there safely. Then he was a Union soldier, but he refused to hate the South, and that was a sin. You have to hate your enemy. He said, they're Americans just like me. I just disagree with them. I'll fight them because I believe they are wrong, but I'm not going to hate them. Well, that wasn't good enough. You had to hate them. The government set up a bogus charged him with something that he wasn't even at in a battle that was lost. He was like, I wasn't even there. They didn't care about the evidence. They didn't call any witnesses. In fact, they tried him in Congress, and they just kept holding back on the trial. We'll get to that in a little while. He was just held in prison. Lincoln found out about it 6 months into his prison, and he said, this man and everybody else you're holding, you charge them or you let them go. Well, they knew better than the president, so they didn't let him go. 6 months after that, Lincoln found out that he was still in prison and said, let him go. Well, he was so destroyed because he had been canceled and smeared in all the press that he couldn't find a job at all in America, so he went overseas. He went overseas to Egypt, and he worked for the French, and he helped build different things. He was in the French Foreign Legion. He was distinguished, and he thought 10 years later he'd come back to America because surely they had forgotten about him. He comes back, he still can't find a job. One day, he's in his house, and there's a knock on his door. He opens the door, and there are 2 soldiers. Are you Charles Pomeroy Stone? Yes. You were working with the French, weren't you? Yes. So you can read French? Yes. Look, we just got a box of stuff, and they dumped it off into New York, and there's no instructions or anything. We just need to, it's all in French. Can you help us assemble that? Well, it was a gift from France. It was called the Statue of Liberty. This is the purchase order for all of the stones for the base of the Statue of Liberty. This man was betrayed by his country. He was lied about. He was canceled. He never fought back in anger. He stood. And when his country said, will you help? For something honorable, he did it. Not because he believed in the men in office, but because he believed in the principles of this country. He knew what liberty stood for. If anybody wants to know, we believe, and this is a new concept in the world, God comes first. He gives those rights that he only holds. He gives them to men, and men lend them to the government so they can protect those rights. It is not the government that is in charge. It is God that is in charge, and we work for him. Let me leave you with this one thought, please. Let me leave you with this one thought. This is what I thought I was going to talk about today. We are not conspiracy theorists. There's a difference between conspiracy theory and conspiracy fact. And this is a book written by Stuart Chase. I know I'm late, I'll go fast. Written by Stuart Chase. It's called The Road We Are Traveling. And Stuart Chase is the guy who came up with the phrase, the New Deal. It was big in the FDR administration. He said, now that the war is coming to an end, we've put some things into place, And some people would call it a dictatorship, some people would call it fascism, but we know that those are wrong now, because at the beginning of the war, everybody thought fascism was neat, communism was neat. Can't believe people still believe communism is neat. Free enterprise. He says, we're going to take the free enterprise system and we're going to change it into something called X, because we don't have a name for it. And any name we give it will just be confusing. But here's what it will look like. A strong centralized government, an executive arm that grows at the expense of the legislature, judicial arms, the control of banking, credit, and security exchanges by the government. By the way, did you read that the government now wants to take over all credit scores? Forget those pesky little companies that do it for you now. The government will do it, and they're trustworthy. Gee, what do you think my ESG score will be? The underwriting of employment by the government, the underwriting of Social Security, the underwriting of food, housing, medical care by the government, the use of deficit spending technique to finance those underwritings. The annual balanced budget has lost its old-timey sanctity, he wrote. The abandonment of gold in favor of managed currencies, the control of foreign trade by the government with increasing emphasis on bilateral agreements and barter deals, the control of natural resources, the control of transportation, railway, highway, waterways, control of agricultural production, the control of labor organizations, heavy taxation. It's all here. It's not a conspiracy. Now, I'm not saying that this is what they're doing right now. I am telling you that the Great Reset is what they're doing, and it is out in the open. And don't believe me, do not go to, even my site, do not go to me for the answers. Go to the worldeconomicforum.org and read it for yourself. This is what's happening, and it is a door that is closing quickly, quickly. They do not believe in the, well, I hate to say it because it's such a conspiracy theory, unless you read it from Cass Sunstein, who is one of the main architects of the Second Bill of Rights, FDR's unfinished revolution, and why we need it now more than ever, a perversion of the Bill of Rights. I don't know if you heard, but this last week, the National Archives came out with their study, and they said that we went into the National Archives and we looked, and that whole first floor, when you walk in, it's nothing but the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence. Well, that was written by racist white people. And we need some action taken there at the National Archives. Luckily for us, they've suggested the way to solve this issue is through interpretive dance. I'm buying a leotard tonight. Gonna be a dance-off in the Capitol. We will win if we care about the other person who we do not know, maybe don't like, maybe are against, and we see their rights being violated and we stand for them. Because they lose their rights, we lose our rights. Stand for the Bill of Rights. Stand for the Constitution and the greatest mission statement of all time. Thank you. Good night.